Hello, everybody. Hi, 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 hi.
Hi there.
Everybody come in. Who was that?
That was Sheila in San
Hi,
Francisco.
Sheila. Hi, Sheila. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Who else do I know? Anthony. Anon, Sheena, Jimmy. Oh my goodness, Jimmy, it is late for you. I'm sorry about that. I have to do a workshop on English time. Good job for staying up so late. How about that? From the Philippines, that's right. Anon is from the Philippines. Okay, all right, Anon, you win the prize. You win the prize. Welcome everybody. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Joanne Butcher, and I am a business coach, and I work with filmmakers. And gosh, people are showing up. Okay, I guess people want to know how to raise money. Well, that's my favorite subject, so that's good. We're all here to learn how to raise money, and more of it. Raise money and raise more money. I've taken to saying recently, more money, more movies, make the world a better place. That's kind of my current mantra. Make more movies, make more money, make the world a better place. Because most of the people who I meet in the film world, unlike the kind of the world out there, most of the people I work in the film world actually are very interested in making the world a better place and using film to do that. So why not? So tonight I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I have a little PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to see about doing that, but I have all these people showing up. Before I start, I just wanted to have you all, you're all creatives, use your imagination and imagine being on the red carpet. And you're walking on the red carpet and you're feeling a little bit self-conscious. And there, you see on the one side of you, there are all these people with cameras, and they're all looking at the red carpet and they're looking at somebody in front of you. They're not looking at you. But if you keep walking on that red carpet, realize in front of me is Nicole Kidman. My goodness. And having their photographs, images of Nicole Kidman, everyone's turning, she's giving a little smile and a little wave, and they're asking her questions and they're holding out microphones, and you're hanging back because you don't want to get in Nicole Kidman's space, right? And eventually Nicole Kidman walks off and you're the one on the red carpet that they're taking the photographs of, and snap, 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 and they don't even know what your name is, but they can ask you, they tell them your name. So I feel as though this is something that all filmmakers really imagine and want to have happen. And the reason I use Nicole Kidman is because that actually happened to me when I was walking a red carpet, and I realized, oh my God, that's Nicole Kidman in front of me. She is really, really tall, and she was wearing flat shoes, but she's about 6 foot or so. So that was a very exciting moment. But I think that all filmmakers have in their mind this idea that, you know, of being on the red carpet one day, of having their films celebrated, of having their stories celebrated, of having their films out there in the world for people to enjoy. And that's why we're here. We are here in order to get our films out into the world. And anybody who has met me before and experienced my speaking and teaching and so on and so forth knows that what I'm interested in is seeing filmmakers raise money. I figure if you raise money, then I can't decide if I'm hot, cold, I don't know what I am. If you can raise money, you can make movies. So that's really what I'm all about. That's what my central message. So tonight we're going to talk about raising money with a team. And this is not something that I've talked much about before, except with my own clients. And I'm very, 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 very partial to the idea of building a fundraising team. I don't believe in fundraising alone. I think it's a team sport. And so building a fundraising team is really kind of the way I would like everybody to be doing their fundraising. And so tonight we're going to get into how to do that. And usually this class is something between an hour and a half. I'm not 100% sure. Is there anybody on the line here who runs a nonprofit? Diane runs a nonprofit. Congratulations. Is there anybody else tonight who runs a nonprofit? By the way, it would be awesome if you would come on video. It's a little disconcerting to have everybody with their cameras off when teaching. It feels as though you're talking to the wall. Does anybody run a nonprofit? No. Okay. Does anybody run a business, a production company? Jimmy. Okay. Does anybody run a business that is a production company, a film production company? Mark? Anybody else? Okay. Prerana, you run a collective. Okay, fabulous. All right. Are you responsible for raising money?
Well, also responsible along with, a few of us. Yeah. But we just raised some money. We got a grant from Color Congress. So we're just on our way to like learning more, getting more ideas to, keep this running.
Keep it going. Okay.
Yeah.
That definitely counts. Anybody else working, running a nonprofit or even a for-profit business? Anthony, you're running a for-profit production company, so you can raise your hand. Okay, who in the group is a documentary filmmaker? How many documentary filmmakers do we have? Okay, Deborah, all right. Diane, Sheila, Sarah, thank you, and Anthony, okay. And who is purely a fiction filmmaker here? Who is purely a fiction filmmaker? John Mark is like, I don't know yet. I haven't decided yet. Okay, all right. And how many people have already made at least one film?
The short film count?
Yes, even a short film, the one short film. Okay. And how many people have already made at least one feature film? Okay.
I'm a week away from Picture Lock, so I don't know how to answer.
A week away from Picture Lock. Yes, that's the best news of the day, Jimmy. That's the best news I've heard all day. Excellent. I just I'm trying to get a bit of an idea about who is in the room, and Anon, that's okay. If you're not properly groomed for the camera, that is fine. All right. Okay, so good. I just wanted to get a bit of a sense as to who is here. And so let us begin. So I'm going to I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to find my, am I on slide 1? That would be a good idea if I was on slide 1. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So my class tonight is called How to Build Your Fundraising Team. And as I said, I do work on this a little bit with my clients because I do recommend that that fundraising is best not done alone. It can be a great challenge to our fragile selves. So it's better when done in as a team. It's always hard to ask. Somebody's unmuted, and I don't have any help tonight. So if you could mute, I'm just hearing some background noise. So it's always hard to, when you're fundraising, it really requires being kind of at the top of your game in a very kind of confident mindset. Fundraising really, really requires being extremely positive. And so it's easier to do that if you have a team, if you're not the only one doing it. And so finding other people to join you is really, really a helpful thing. So we're going to get into that. So some of you know me, some of you don't. So this is me. And my name is Joanne Butcher. I am a fundraiser and a film producer and a business coach. And I work with clients to help them learn how to fundraise. And so it used to be that a few years ago, I had 2 resumes. I had my fundraising resume and I had my filmmaking resume. And I was very much kind of split into 2. And eventually now I have become one person. And I teach fundraising for filmmakers, and I help filmmakers to raise money. That's really all I do. I do some nonprofit work as well, but for the most part, I'm helping filmmakers raise money. So I'm now one person. When I was purely fundraising for a while, I was somebody who was incredibly successful as a fundraiser. And it seemed that whatever goal I was given, I was able to beat it. When I went to San Francisco, I was running a capital campaign for $38 million. And an extra part of my job, another part of my job, was getting grants for our youth development program. And my boss said to me, well, your goal is $250,000. And I said, oh, okay. So my first year that I was there, I think it was a bit less than a year, actually. My first year that I was there, I raised $251,000 because she told me to raise 250. So I raised 251. And I was like, phew, I made my goal. And it wasn't until after I made my goal that I found out that nobody that she had ever hired before had ever raised even $200,000. So she wasn't even expecting she gave me the goal of 250, but she wasn't even expecting 200. And I raised 251. And then the next year I raised $749,000. And they were just stunned, you know. And this was, as I said, just one little piece of my job. And what they didn't realize was that I saw that money. I saw that 749,000 when they had me in the job interview. I knew that it wasn't right, the amount of money that they were raising. I knew that it didn't fit what they were actually doing. And I knew that I could change it, but I knew it instantly. And what they were seeing was not what I was seeing. I was seeing something completely different. And that's what I presented when I was making my grants. For one example, as I said, this was just for the youth program. And I remember making a presentation to the San Francisco mayor and the board of commission and things like that. And I remember talking about our youth program, you know, and I said to the board, you know, can you imagine if you were told that you couldn't cross Market Street? And in San Francisco, Market Street is the big road that goes all the way from one end of the city to the other. And there's buses and trams that go along Market Street. I said, can you imagine if you were told you cannot cross Market Street? And they all looked kind of puzzled. And I said, well, every child in our program knows that they cannot cross Market Street. If they cross Market Street, they are liable to be killed. Do you know what it would be like to live under those circumstances? And people were just shocked. I was just telling the truth about our kids and about the lives that they lived. But the truth is that most people who were white and middle class could never possibly understand what our kids went through. And what I did was I helped them understand what our kids were going through. $749,000 later, that's what happened. That was the funding that we got. I then went over to Oakland to youth radio, and they help young people become broadcast journalists on the radio. And if ever you listen to NPR and you hear a young person telling a story, it's going to be somebody from youth radio. They're usually 18, 19, 20 years old. They've studied broadcast journalism at youth radio. And I sat down and I just wrote grants for 5 months and raised $2 million, or just over $2 million for youth radio. And the funny thing about that achievement is that in later years, I heard other companies talking about their achievement of raising that money for youth radio, but I raised it. And I also had the experience of going on job interviews and people thinking that I was lying, that I had done that. But that's exactly what I did. I raised just over $2 million in 5 months. Then last year, I started to run my virtual fundraising team. And I had a client, Catchlight. They're a fabulous organization that gives fellowships to photographers. Look them up, fabulous, fabulous organization. And they hired me to increase their funding. And I set a goal to raise $400,000 extra that year. And they looked at me a bit funny. They thought, well, we don't really see it, but you know, okay. They were a $1.2 million organization. They were like, $400,000, we could imagine maybe 40. You know, they could imagine maybe raising 40 extra $1,000, but $400,000, they didn't really see that. And in 3 months, we raised $2.2 million. And it was absolutely hilarious when I was working with them, because I had set up so that we had a meeting every week. And in the last month or so that I was working with them, every time we had the meeting, the executive director would come on the meeting and she would just be like, and she would end the meeting because she couldn't talk. And it was just the shock of a $1.2 million organization raising $2.2 million in 3 months. That is just so mind-blowing that, you know, it took them a few months. And finally, actually, I should have brought that tonight. They put out a press release saying what they were going to do. And they launched a $2 million initiative to start a local news desk in California. So again, the organization was presenting itself as an organization that gave fellowships to photographers. And we switched it around to, or I switched it around to talking about saving democracy through local news, because the the state of local news today is really, really sad. So those are some of my accomplishments. And at the same time now, I have clients with about 15 films in distribution. I was just speaking to another one today who's about to deliver her film to a distributor. You just heard Jimmy is a week away from Picture Lock, yes. So there'll be more coming along. The way it works is I teach filmmakers how to raise money. They raise the money, they make the films. So how to build your fundraising team. So the four elements that I think are really, really important for you in building your team are, first of all, collaboration. And the reason I was asking if there are people here who run organizations, but it seems that everybody here is a filmmaker, even if you also run an organization. And filmmakers in some ways are the most collaborative people because they deal with all of the different departments, you know, whether it's the photography department, editing department, wardrobe department, whatever that is. They're dealing with all of that and they collaborate a lot, but they tend to not think about collaborating when it's outside the film set or outside the actual film piece. And so collaboration is really key to building a fundraising team. And when I first learned about building teams was when I was working for the YMCA in San Francisco. And we had a campaign every year. So where you might be familiar with this would be if you think about a crowdfunding campaign. And a crowdfunding campaign usually is set at 30 days. So there's a definite beginning, middle, end, you know. Now our campaigns at the Y were 6 weeks. So we had 6 weeks where we were running a campaign and there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. There was kind of a build up at the beginning. There was stuff that happened during, and then there was a close, you know. And one of the things that they said was, you know, you don't want to be fundraising all the time. But I actually do want my clients to be fundraising all the time, but I don't necessarily want them to be doing things that are public and taking a lot of energy out all the time. So, but if you can create, and it could be crowdfunding, if you can create a campaign that lasts for a very defined period of time, that's a really perfect time to bring people into a team. And you're really enlisting them to join you for a period of 30 days or a period of 6 weeks. And what I would do in those, what we did in those 6 weeks. Now, when I walked into that, they already had people who had been fundraising. All right. So let's say we had a list of several hundred people who had been fundraising for several years, plus some new people, several dozen new people, because we would recruit people. And we would take that list of several hundred people and divide it up into teams. So maybe we would have 40 teams. And each team would have 6 to 10 to 12 people on a team. And in that experience, we had a minimum goal of $600 each. So everybody on the team had their goal of raising at least $600. And they could do that by asking people for money or however they wanted to do it. You know, when you're raising small amounts of money, and I don't want to pretend to anybody that $600 is a small amount of money. I don't want to ever pretend that the numbers that I'm talking about are anything but a lot of money. So $600 may be a lot of money to you. So but what we did was we would help people, raising their $600 by educating them. And this, I think, is the most important thing that a lot of people, when they're fundraising and when they're asking others to fundraise, don't think about. But I really believe if you're going to ask somebody to fundraise, you need to educate them. Now, you don't need to be some kind of fundraising guru, but you just need to be willing to share what you know about fundraising with others. And so if you're going to put people on your team, then maybe you will, quickly go and take some classes in fundraising or crowdfunding or something like that, and then pass it on to your team. What I found is that a lot of times people make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'm going to ask people to fundraise, and they said they would fundraise, and so that's the end of it, instead of providing them with education. So when we were building our YMCA fundraising teams, what we did was we offered evenings where we would teach people how to fundraise. We would do role-playing sessions where people would ask donors for money. That's often something my clients ask me. Well, what do I say? What do I say? Say, give me the money. No. So we would help people in role playing, or we would provide education on how to write a nice email, or we would provide education on how to make a phone call and how to sit down with somebody and ask them for money. So, one of the things I've been saying a lot recently about fundraising is not rocket science. There's nothing that's super complicated about fundraising, but it is great. The more that you learn, if you can pass that on, that's really, really helpful. So you want to be able to educate people, and you want to be able to bring them along in the journey. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to promote your film or your cause. For Prerana, it might be the collective, it might be a film, it might be a company, something like that. So the more that you can promote, the better. And of course, these days, promotion tends to be all on social media. So one of my clients was asking the other day, well, how do I get on social media? I'm just not good at that. And I like to say, especially if this is not something you've done before, just try one platform. Don't try to do all the platforms at once. Just try one platform and just try and get used to that. Try and get used to that one. And I was just listening to something today where somebody said, make sure you're spending your 15 minutes a day on social media. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So, but anyway, that was probably a good piece of advice. And then convert it's a sales term. Convert is when you turn somebody from listening, considering, to actually making that donation or making that gift. So there's a part of this which is like sales, and I think it's quite a good way of thinking about it, that it's like sales. So you want to close a sale. You don't want to just have it hanging there all the time, which is another reason that it's great to do campaigns that have a very finite term, so that there's a sort of momentum where if you have a list of people, then you're building them to this final date, and you're going to try and push everybody to give by that final date. So that's always a useful tool to use, is to have that time-bound time-bound campaign. So that was just a general overview, and I wanted to just look at some numbers here. So Giving USA says in the annual report on philanthropy for year 2021, individuals, bequests, foundations, and corporations gave an estimated 484.85 billion with a B to US charities in 2021. Total charitable giving in 21 grew 4% over the revised total of 466.23 billion contributed in 2020. Out of those different ways of giving, individuals, bequests, that's when you leave money when you die, that's a bequest, foundations and corporations. What do you think is the way of giving that accounts for the most giving out of those four? Individuals, bequests, foundations, and corporations. What do you think accounts for the most giving? Who has the answer?
I would go with individuals because I feel that's where blackmail sits in.
What did you say about blackmail?
I would go with individuals because I put blackmail within that as a subcategory of individuals.
You're a terrible person, Jimmy. Individuals is definitely the most. And it's something like 80–90% of all giving is given by individuals. And I think that's a very important thing to think about, because what I find particularly with documentary filmmakers is that they're always writing grants. I have nothing against grants. Grants are great. But I just want you to remember that the majority of money that is given in any given year is given by individuals. And so if you are putting 100% of your effort into grants, you are not putting your efforts in the right place. You want to be focusing more of your efforts on individuals because that's where the most money is. So that's a really, really important thing for filmmakers to think about. The money is with individuals. Here's the number. Over 80% of all donations to charities and nonprofit organizations in the US come from individuals, over 80%. So if you are one person fundraiser, and you're putting 100% of your time and effort into grants, and documentary film grants are a very small slice of the pie, then you are really putting your efforts into the wrong place. As again, I have nothing against documentary film grants. I think that's great. But it would be wiser if you put something like 80% of your attention on individuals and 20% of your attention on grants. And that would be more in balance with what the actual giving is. I'm just going to stop sharing here because I want to look at this list of statistics.
Joanne?
Yes.
Is individual giving increasing? Because I know the old stats would say like 70%. So it sounds like that's something that's actually increasing.
I've been saying 90% for years, and I've now
So,
had to
okay.
revise
So it just depends on the store. Okay.
Well, no, it's just, I don't know how much it's gone up or how much it's gone down, but it's a much greater number than anything else is the main point that I'm trying to make. It's just a much more significant number than any other kind of giving. So just some interesting statistics here around charitable giving, something just to, spark ideas. 31% of donors worldwide give to NGOs, NPOs, and charities located outside of their country of residence. I just think that's fascinating. I think that's really fascinating. 41% of everybody gives to natural disasters. Education giving saw a relatively slower growth compared to earlier years. when it was growing at a faster percent. Total charitable giving grew 4.1% in 2016 and 5% in 2017. Oh, foundation giving in 2016 increased to 58 billion. That's a lot of money, and the number is increasing. Giving to education charities was up 6.2% to 58.9 billion, 14% of all donations. A lot of times filmmakers are not thinking about their films as being education. You know, they're thinking about the topic of the film. They're not thinking about the fact that the film is education, but that's really, really important. Foundations are 11% of all giving. So that's interesting. So if individuals are 80% and foundations are 11%, we are now at 91% of giving. And again, filmmakers are putting all of their time on documentary grants when individuals and foundations account for 91% of giving. So it's really a mind shift for a lot of filmmakers to have to really decide, no, I'm going to divide up my fundraising time differently, you know, and put my attention elsewhere. What else do we have here? Arts, culture, and humanities saw an increase of 8.7% to 19.51 billion. But notice how much smaller that number is than, say, education. You know, I always said, you know, when I was applying for arts money, we would always get, you know, 10, 20% of what we asked for, you know, whereas if you're applying for workforce development money, you get 100% of what you ask for, you know, so that's an interesting thing.
What is workforce development money? What does that mean?
Oh, workforce development money is programs that help people get jobs. It's usually government money. In America, it's federal money, but you get 100% of what you ask for. When you're working in the arts, you get 10, 20%.
But so Joanne, though, what if you're doing professional development within the arts? So you really are working with workforce development. Does it balance itself out, or?
It just depends on where you are getting the money from. If it's coming from the federal government for jobs, and for example, if you were hiring people who were in places that were low income and low employment and things like that, all of that would count. It's kind of from my experience, it's the highest amount of money that I've seen people get. But I don't think for what you're saying, it is exactly the same thing.
Right.
But for professional development, that would come under arts and culture and things like that.
I was just gonna say, because I know that the California Arts Council, they gave they have a phenomenal amount of money this last year that's gone into specifically organizational development that's working with at-risk youth in some way, whether that's, you know, whether it's having to do with their income levels or, you know, what have you. And
yes,
so,
well, again, you know, when I was doing youth development work, we would get money from all kinds of things, for arts, for computer training, for leadership. But once we got to job skills and job training, that was a very different level of money.
okay.
What else do we have buried in here? Charitable giving accounted for 2.1% of gross domestic product. That's interesting. Approximately 91% of high net worth households give to charity. That's interesting. On average, high net worth donors gave 25,509 to charity in 2015. By comparison, general population households gave 2,520 on average. I'm going to skip the schools, but I like this side. Talks about millennials. 46% donate to crowdfunding campaigns. I cannot tell you how many of my clients tell me, oh, I'm not going to run a crowdfunding campaign in November. 15% gave on Giving Tuesday 2017. Giving Tuesday is the first Tuesday in November. And it's become the nonprofit start of the giving season. And the giving season is November, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all of the holidays, all of the celebrations, the season of giving. So it begins on Giving Tuesday. I'm here in Trinidad right now, and it's Diwali today. And I didn't realize when I scheduled this workshop that it was going to be Diwali, and it's our day off here. Everybody's on holiday. We're lighting the lights. I'm, missing the whole thing. But I feel as though that's a little bit like the beginning of the giving season as well. So 16% of millennials give through Facebook fundraising tools, 64% volunteer locally, 9% internationally. That's extraordinary. 55% attend fundraising events. Millennials are a bit different to older donors, and they are very interested in outcomes. And they have tools at their fingertips that they can look and see how an organization is doing, and they will look and they will find out. So millennials are really about accountability and outcomes. So Gen Xers, 45% donate to crowdfunding campaigns, 14% gave on Giving Tuesday 2017, 19% give through Facebook. Quite a bit lower on the volunteering, but still 50% attend fundraising events. Gen Xers are most likely to fundraise on behalf of a cause, make a pledge, and volunteer their time to an organization. So it may very well be that the people you want to invite on your fundraising team are Gen Xers. And it's also a very common thing. One of the types of fundraising that's not really open to filmmakers is what I was talking before about bequests, planned giving. And there are two very distinct types of planned gifts. One comes from extremely wealthy people. The other one comes from people who give a very small amount every year. And they have this long-term loyalty to an organization. And then when they prepare their estates, they leave a gift to the organization. So each generation has its own kind of ways with fundraising, and each generation is a little bit different. Here we get to baby boomers. 35, much less, 35% donate to crowdfunding campaigns, 15% gave on Giving Tuesday. That seems to be pretty consistent. Much less give through Facebook, 71% volunteer locally, 9% internationally, 58% attend fundraising events. 24% of boomers say they were promoted to give an online donation because of direct mail. Who even talks about direct mail anymore? They answer voice calls, check email regularly, use text messaging and social media. They're slow to adopt new technology. And the greatest generation, 88% gives to charity. And they represent 26% of total US giving. They prefer voice calls and direct mail. So each generation is completely different, and it's good to know and to work with those differences. Corporations, now, I don't speak so much about corporate giving when filmmakers are only on their first films, because you don't have enough to be able to say about who is going to get to see your film for corporate giving. However, if you raise money to pay for a social impact campaign, and you really can show that you're going to, let's say, well, Anthony, one of my clients here, Anthony, is going to be showing his film to organize. His film is about visually impaired and blind artists who teach painting to blind and visually impaired students. So he's very much working with organizations that serve the blind, and he'll be able to, he's putting together a social impact campaign that's going to be able to show we're going to X number of organizations that serve the blind, and Y number of organizations that serve artists, and Z number of organizations that serve something else. And so
Art therapists.
therapist, thank you, thank you. So
Thank you.
he will be able to show a corporation how this film is being shown and where it's being shown and who is going to see it. Corporate giving is a little bit different than these other types of giving, because most people, most individuals are giving to causes that they believe in. Corporate giving is usually aimed at promoting the company. So it's usually marketing money, and they are looking to sell their products. However, corporations have found that they benefit by partnering with nonprofits. So they raise money through workplace giving. So whenever you're asking for donations, you always have to remember, if somebody works for a corporation that will match their giving, you can double the gift. More than 49% of nonprofit respondents identified workplace giving as a growth strategy for their organization. Corporations, one of the things that's really important to them is, you know, the number one expense for a corporation is payroll, is employees. And so employee retention is hugely important to corporations. So by offering their employees the ability to give through the workplace is a very, very highly sought after program for corporations. So so they like to give their employees ways to give, both in money and in time, and it really improves employee retention. 73% of companies prefer to have deeper partnerships with a smaller number of nonprofits. So it's really important when you're working with a corporation to really work with them to develop a program. It's very unlikely that you're going to have kind of a list of things. In fact, one of my clients just did this yesterday. She came up with kind of a list for corporations, and that's fine, but you have to make clear that it's only a starting conversation, you know, your list, and then you've got to develop that with them to be what it is that they're looking for. Nearly 60% of companies offer paid time off for employees to volunteer. So again, this is another group of people who would be great for you to approach to participate in your fundraising teams. They might be people who would do the fundraising with you, or they might be people who will come on and do the social media, or, you know, those other pieces. Oh, am I going to remember the name of the company? Oh, I'm not. Anyway, there's a really significant, no, I'm not going to talk about it because I can't remember the name of the company right now. If it comes to me, I'll mention it later. So let me get this link and put it in the chat so that you can look up some of the stuff. I thought there might be a section on foundations, but no foundations. That's a shame, because foundations are very important for filmmakers, especially for documentary filmmakers. All right, here is the link for that, so you can go and study it and find out more fascinating things. It just goes on and on and on. But it's funny that they left out foundations, but foundations are really, really important for filmmakers. So let me find where I was. Does anyone have any questions while I'm just looking around here in my computer for my PowerPoint that I lost? Anyone have any questions?
Diane. So since we're sitting here on, what is it, October 24th, I would love to hear any sort of ideas you have if we don't already have a campaign or something going on Giving Tuesday. You know, if there is something that we could do as kind of a one-off to start, because I know I'm going to set up a campaign in December, but I know that I potentially am going to miss that, you know, that initial opening.
I don't know, how can I lose my PowerPoint, but I literally have lost my PowerPoint. It's so embarrassing. This is the last time I'm teaching a class without having somebody helping me, is all I can say. Wow, I have totally lost it. That is just terrible.
Don't feel bad, I've done it before.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. Who was that?
Likewise.
Monica. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah, likewise, absolutely.
It's so funny. So for Giving Tuesday, I mean, the most simple thing is to just send an email out that says, it's Giving Tuesday. We're starting our season of giving. You know, I mean, just something very general. All I ever see is emails. I don't see anything more fancy than that, you know? This is crazy. I had everything in one place and it's all gone. I can't believe it. Ask another question, somebody. Somebody ask me another question, because I'm going to damn well find it.
This is Sheila. I have a question. Oh, was it someone else?
Go ahead. I heard Sheila first and then somebody else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Athena. Anyway, I've been thinking of hiring someone to do social media for me, just to kind of build my database, you know, kind of for a month and see how it goes. Because I just don't have the time to do that, because I'm also the editor for my documentary. And, you know, you can't do everything. It's really quite a different headspace. And I'm really not that great at it. So I was just wondering, do you think it's a good idea to actually hire, you know, a professional who actually knows what they're doing to do that?
Well, the thing about fundraising and building your team is that you need to have, on the one hand, some money coming in. And, you know, my coaches started us off with the idea that we didn't spend money until we were making money. And I'm very, very, very committed to that concept. So
Well, I did get a generous grant, so I do have money already.
Yay!
Yes. for
So-
people to do things that I cannot do, you know,
Yes.
for a limited amount of time.
Yes, so the thing is that and the thing I really feel is so important about building a fundraising team is that if I had money to spend, if I were a filmmaker and I had money to spend, I would spend money on raising money.
Uh-huh.
Because the thing that tends to happen is I'll give you a story. She didn't show up tonight, so I can tell this story. So I met somebody recently who's been working for 38 years to further the cause of training therapists in trauma-related therapy. Sounds like a fantastic cause. And yes, she's been working in this field for about 38 years. And this year, the budget of the organization is $68,000. And once she told me a little bit about the organization, I understood exactly what is going on. And what is going on is that she has enough energy to raise money for some programs, for some programming. So she's never really had much more than that. Maybe she's got up to about $150,000, you know, something like that. But all the money goes to programming. And what that means is that the organization can never grow. And the only way to have an organization grow is to invest in fundraising. And without investing in fundraising, it's just always going to be the same thing. It's always going to be one person doing all the fundraising and the organization not growing. So, you know, your question was, well, should I hire a social media team person? Is that going to bring in money, is what I would say. Is that going to bring in money? And is that going to allow me then to have more money to raise more money? And years ago, I made a fabulous error years ago. I took a job as the director of development at an organization. I'm not going to say their name, so I can say things about them. But so I took this job as the director of development at this organization. And the first day that I was there, I said, can I see your 990? Does anybody know what a 990 is? Jimmy.
A 990, it's the form that I guess you submit to the IRS that for charities that, and it lists
Right.
who donates to the charities.
Yes.
Right.
So a 990 is the nonprofit tax return. And so the first day of work, I said, can I see the 990, please? So I'm reading all of the different minutes from the board retreats and this and that and this and that. And I get the 990 and I'm looking at the 990. It was a $2.2 million organization. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, they're $500,000 in the red. Well, $2.2 million, if you're $500,000 in the red, that's about 25% of your organization, right? And I'm like, oh shit, I just took a job at this organization that's $500,000 in the red. And so I was like, well, it's too late now. I'm here, you know, it's the job. So I go to the CEO and I said, hey, you're $500,000 in the red, you know, and she said, no, we're not. I was like, okay, what just happened? You know, so I went to the CFO who had been with this organization for about 20 years. I said, we're $500,000 in the red. And she said, we are? I was like, oh my God. So I I showed her how I could tell that we were $500,000 in the red. And it's kind of a complicated thing, but they were getting major grants from like the National Science Foundation, and they get 3-year grants, and they were counting the 3 years in 1 year and not over 3 years. They were booking, you know, say it was for $600,000 and they were booking the $600,000 instead of booking 200,000, 200,000 and 200,000, right? So I was like, the $500,000 in the red. So the CFO and I came up with a plan, and about 2 weeks later, they were going to have a board retreat. They said, we're going to make a presentation, the two of us together, you know, me, the new person, you, the old person. We're going to show them how the organization is $500,000 in the red. They're going to be the people there who are the specialists on the board, who are the finance specialists. This is going to be great. So we prepare our presentation and we make our presentation. We say, and the organization is $500,000 in the red. And they said, no, we're not. And we left the board retreat, and I was like, well, I don't know what to do. So I went on with my job, and 5 months later, they called me in and they said, we're going to have to let you go. I said, oh, why? And they said, because we're $500,000 in the red. By which time I had raised a couple of $1 million, but, you know, but it was just amazing that they had never gone through and realized that they were in so much trouble. And this particular organization, all of their money came from grants. And one of the things that I was able to do before I left, I raised a $1 million grant for them that required that they raise $250,000 in individual donations. And so for the very first time, the organization actually was required and went and raised the money from major donors, which they had never done that work before. And they were able to now expand into another area of fundraising. So what happens is people raise money for their projects, but they don't invest in the fundraising. And oh, the whole reason I told this 990 story was actually for some other reason. When I got the 990, I saw that in their fundraising expenses column, it basically said 0. And that was when I really knew I was in trouble. Because if you're running a nonprofit, you want to be investing money into fundraising. Because if you're not, then what I know is going to happen is that whatever budget you're at today is going to reduce. And then it's going to reduce. And then it's going to reduce. And then it's going to reduce. So in order to expand, you have to invest in fundraising. And that's what I was saying. When Catchlight hired me last year, they were investing in bringing in a consultant. The executive was an excellent fundraiser. She had a full-time grant writer, but the truth is that they had no systems. They had no ability to raise money, except in their case, from major donors, from their old major donors. They weren't raising much money from grants. They weren't really making money in other places. And they needed to expand. And if you are a filmmaker or you're running an organization, you have to expand. And that's why I'm suggesting that the first expansion you do, if you're not Sheila, who has money, the first expansion you do is you bring on people to help you with fundraising. So I found my PowerPoint. So let me go back here, see what I was going to talk about. So, all right, share my screen. I'm so glad, Monica, that you said that you had done that before, because I didn't feel so bad. So So there are 7 types of fundraising. This is something I teach all the time. There are 7 types of fundraising. And as we just looked at those different stats about giving, I always start with individual donors because that's where 80% of the money is coming from. So on some level, we want to be engaged in bringing in major donors. The first thing I would do, for example, Sheila, if I got a grant, was I would use that grant to leverage my donations from individuals, because because a grant is a really great stamp of approval, you know?
Right.
So a
But
grant.
how do you do that? You say leverage it. I'm wondering how. How do you do that? Not that I should already know, but.
I'm just going to mute you so I can talk. So the grant is a stamp of approval that allows people to know that your project has already been vetted by a professional entity, whoever that organization is. Who is the organization that gave you the grant? Are you allowed to say, Sheila?
I can just say it in the group here. Artemis Rising Foundation.
Artemis Rising, did you say?
Yes, yes.
Lovely.
I mean, I'm
Congratulations.
not putting it
No,
out
you're
there
not
in public, actually.
amongst
So
us.
I'm waiting.
Us.
And just to follow up with what you just said, I did that. I sent out an email to let everybody on my email list and past donors. And let's see, I think only one person made a donation from that.
Okay, what is the average age of your donors?
Good question. Probably, 40s, 50s.
So what did we learn from our look at the different age groups?
I don't know, you put out a lot of.
They don't do emails.
Uh-huh.
You have to call them. Yeah, you have to call them, but that's fine. You've sent out the email and now you can follow up. Okay, so a grant is a wonderful stamp of approval. It means that you have now been vetted by some other organization, and now you can use that to go to your individual donors and tell them how well you're doing and how great this project is because you've got this donation. But what I would do is I would always look to raise some money to increase in the business, it's called fundraising capacity. And there are actually specific grants out there that are for capacity building. And capacity building is what I think of as the super unsexy ways that you build an organization. So it might be if you had, enough people, probably Mark Gordon may be the only one here who has enough people on his list. He has a list of 2,500 people on his list. So maybe you invest in a donor relations software. Maybe you invest in hiring a fundraiser. Maybe you invest in what else? But all of these things are ways that you build your fundraising capacity. But building your fundraising capacity is something that, in fact, when I raised that $1 million for that organization, and the donor said, we will give you $750,000, you must raise the other 250 from major donors. So it was a matching grant, and it was designed to make the organization build its fundraising capacity. The organization was very good at getting grants, but it was not good at getting individual donations. And in fact, when I read through every year of their corporate board retreat, every single board retreat said, this year is the year we're going to start our major donor campaign. It would say the same thing every single year, and every single year they did not do it. So I did it for them by getting them a $750,000 grant that required $250,000 matching dollars, and the carrot, the carrot that came with the stick, you know, so the carrot was the $750,000. And they could have maybe used some of that $750,000 to pay for something that helped get the 250 in. So to me, what I would do if I was Sheila and I had that grant, I would go to a major donor and I would ask them to give me money to increase my fundraising capacity. So what happens is we always need all of our money for our program, or we need all of our money for our film. And so we're not thinking about growing the organization in the future, but the way that we're going to grow the organization in the future is by building that team. So maybe we hire a grant writer, maybe we hire a fundraiser. So the 7 types of fundraising I don't particularly have in the right order in terms of, you know, what I was talking before about the 80%, 20%, you know, that kind of thing. But I always do start with the individual donors, because that's where the money is. That's where 80% of the money is always going to be. So if you work on the major donors yourself, but you hire a grant writer, that would be one way of building your team. In terms of films, in terms of documentary films, it's really the case that foundations are going to provide a lot more of your income than grants are going to. Grants could be documentary film grants. It could also be government grants. It could be local grants. I just mentioned the National Science Foundation. That's only something that you would get to when you really have a team. I'm just working with one of my clients on a National Science Foundation grant. We just got a $150,000 grant to pay for somebody to write a treatment, for somebody to be the National Science Foundation grant writer, for all other pieces. So in that case, we have raised $150,000 to increase our fundraising capacity, and we're applying for $3 million from the National Science Foundation. But we couldn't do that without that $150,000. So whenever you can, try and have some money coming in to increase your fundraising team, whatever that looks like. Foundations are not an expensive way of raising money. It's just usually more about, you know, numbers, and it's usually about for where most of you are in your filmmaking, for most of you, it's going to be about the distribution and impact end of your film rather than production or post-production. But foundations are really, really important for you if you're making a documentary film, or if you're making a fiction film that has some kind of element to it that that is a cause that a foundation might be behind. And that could be as broad as something like women's empowerment. That could be as broad as leadership skills. You know, it's foundations support anything you can possibly imagine, and your film fits some foundations out there. But foundation fundraising is really a great way to actually start. I would say if I was starting today as a filmmaker, I would be focused on individuals and foundations. That would be how I would start. Then I would take some of that money and use it to maybe hire a grant writer, or hire some element of a fundraising team. But if you can start thinking in terms of what piece of this money can I use? Now, when you're applying for a grant or going to a foundation, going to a donor, add in there. So let's say you were going to a donor and you were going to ask for $10,000. I would suggest trying and asking for $10,000 for the film and $2,000 for a grant writer. Now you have increased the gift, but it's because you've added something in there that is very much of interest to your donor, because your donor is interested in seeing the film get finished. And the way the film is going to get finished is because you're going to get better at fundraising. So you can, if you add that piece in, if instead of always just asking for the film, you ask for something to increase your fundraising capacity, that's a very wise thing to do. Special events, you've heard me talk about before. The only special event I like is house parties. And that's a great way of soliciting donations, but it's really back to number 2 because it's major donors. But any other special events I'm not into, but that's my personal thing. I'm burned out on special events. So I would like to introduce to most of you don't know about this, but I would like to introduce to you my virtual fundraising team, where I have a team of professional fundraisers who work in all of the 7 types of fundraising, set up your fundraising systems, and work on your film or nonprofit. And what I have been doing mostly up until now is I work with filmmakers and I teach them how to fundraise. And that's a great way to also to build your fundraising capacity, is for you to learn how to raise money. So that's a great first step in building your team. Make you the fundraiser, make you a professional by actually knowing how to fundraise. The next step that I'm offering now is a virtual fundraising team where my team takes on the fundraising, and we work in all the different types of fundraising. Because one of the things that I think is hard for, even once you get to be able to hire a full-time person, is that they're good at all the different types of fundraising. You might find a good grant writer, but then they're not necessarily a corporate sponsor person. Or you might find a good grant writer, but they're not necessarily a major donor type. So my team works in all the different types of fundraising, sets up all the systems, and sets up the fundraising for you. So it's something new that I'm offering. Last year, I just did it with a couple of clients, and Catchlight was one of them. And I would love to offer that service to you as well when you're ready for that. And if you don't already have it, my email, you should already have my email address, joanne@filmmakersuccess.com. And so if you would like to talk to me about having me teach you how to fundraise, then, sign up on my calendar, which I have now lost that as well, and set up a time to talk with me about learning how to fundraise from me, or to hire my fundraising team so that we can do the fundraising for you. But I think that for anybody who is a filmmaker or who is running an organization, it's like, just to summarize, it's just kind of one step at a time. How can I increase my team a little bit? Maybe I find my millennial who will come on and do my social media for me. Maybe I hire somebody to write a grant. Maybe I build a team to do a crowdfunding campaign, and we raise $10,000, $20,000 from small donors. What can I do that's my first step in building my team, and how can I use some of the money that I raise to expand my fundraising capacity. You know, between all my clients, I have my client that we're raising the $3 million for this one particular firm. We've already raised a couple of $1 million for other projects, but by now, you know, we have a team in place and we're raising money purely to hire that team. So for all of you, it's starting small, but always having in mind, what piece of this can I break off to pay for more fundraising and build my capacity. Mark, you have a question. Oh, where'd you
Can
go?
you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. So, yeah, so I'm just wondering with this new team that you're offering, how does that work? You know, how do you get started with that? What kind of, you know, funds are we talking about in order to start a team like that?
I would discuss that with you when we have a phone call. I don't discuss my prices publicly, but
Sorry.
so my team consists of people who are specialists in each of the areas, and then I am a one-stop shop fundraiser myself, and then I run the team and we create the systems in all of those different areas of fundraising, so that the way I think of it is that in 3 months, we have taken you to where a full-time fundraiser probably couldn't get you in a year. And a full-time fundraiser, when I started as a full-time one-stop development shop in San Francisco back in, whenever that was, 1995? No, 2005, so I'm sorry, 2005. My salary was $75,000. And after a couple of years, it was 100,000. So I figure 75, now that years have gone by, and $75,000 to $100,000 is what it would take you to hire a full-time fundraiser for a year. And if you're in a position where you can hire a full-time fundraiser for a year, what I would require of that fundraiser is that we have a grant, foundation proposal, a corporate sponsorship proposal, a major donor campaign set up, and a crowdfunding campaign. You know me, I always love everybody to do a crowdfunding campaign because it's great marketing. So Prerna's off to Diwali. Bye, Prerna. All of those systems, usually what happens is any given filmmaker or any given organization will set up, you know, they'll be good at one type of fundraising, maybe two, you know, but they're not doing all of them. And my attitude is, even if we're not bringing in money yet in all of them, I want that system in place. So that any opportunity that comes to you, let's say you're having dinner with friends, and then it turns out that one of them works for such and such a corporation, you know, and you now have a door open to talk to a corporation. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could go home, if you could say, oh, when I get home, I'm going to send you my corporate sponsorship deck, and send it as soon as you get home, right? Because you have everything in place already. So, you know, and then eventually you'll get to the point where you have your $3 million project, and you have your full-time grant writer in place, and your this other person in place, and you know, you're running your major donor campaign. So it's always about building. How do you take that first step and then get to the next step and the next step and the next step? So yes, it said, oh, Jimmy, you have a question. Was that enough, Mark, for you?
Oh, that was good. Good start. Thank you.
Jimmy, what's your question?
I do. Sorry, my camera's off. It's pretty late here.
Yes.
So a couple questions, and one of them is, you mentioned about, I think Sheila was talking about the grants, and you talked about that being a stamp of approval. And I'm curious, are there other stamps of approval for those of us who have not achieved grants that would be helpful, like the festivals or endorsements or something like that? The other thing I wanted to ask was, you talked about, the goal would be with the 3-month period, we'd get a certain, hopefully you'd help us raise a certain amount of money. And then for us to be able to, then for some people like myself, I'd have to hire someone in to take that further. That person I'm hiring in, they would then be a Jill of all trades. The goal would be, they would be a Jill of all trades, take on the system and continue deploying that, or would we prioritize what that person would need to be able to take on, pending when we can get somebody else to do the other 7 ways of.
Yeah, I think that's great. Once you have the systems in place, ideally you would continue working all of those systems, and you would be in a position where you could possibly just, keep doing that by yourself. But it's not sustainable, is the thing. It's not sustainable. The reason that you need to have more people on your team is because you need to be raising more money. So it would just depend on how much if you hire somebody who is more experienced, they can probably bring in more money. If you hire somebody who's less experienced, maybe they'll bring in less money. But the idea is to keep investing in how you're going to bring in money. That's the way to think about it. And donors, whether they are foundations, whether they are grant funders, whether they are individuals, are always very excited to see anybody trying to build their fundraising capacity. It sounds like the least sexy thing that you could be asking for money for, but for anybody who understands money, it's the most sexy thing that you could ask for money for, is to build your fundraising capacity. So you could be fundraising for a fundraiser, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I do understand that. It's just more around the for lack of a better word, the job description. So let's say month 4, amazing stuff, and now I'm looking to bring in someone to carry that on. That person, would I be looking for that person to cover all the 7 different areas of fundraising, or will that person be a specialist in one area, 1 or 2 areas after I've worked with you guys?
Yeah, and that would also depend on what had shown up, because the 7 ways of fundraising are not going to be even, because they're always going to be different for every film. And so one film, like I brought up before about Anthony, it may be that for Anthony, corporations are the way that's going to be his main thing. So I would just sort of want to encourage him, for example, to continue with the corporations, but keep trying to go forward with the other ones, because it's so easy to just let it fall off and just let that slip away. You want to try to keep going forward in all of the different ways. But it might be, oh my gosh, it turns out we really need to be applying to foundations and education, because that's what's working. And so, it would show up, I think, in 3 months, it would show up.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Diane?
So, I'm not sure.
7:30 is when I was going to end. So technically we're finished, but I'm happy to take questions.
Is it okay? Okay. So one of the things that I see that's really inefficient, particularly in this community, and it's also, I feel like you and show and tell films and people who really are addressing that so many filmmakers are just going after those same fundraising sources. what I also, this community is almost a real paranoia about like getting together as a group and figuring out how we can, like, you know, here are the needs basically. And there's this many of us, and how can we divide this up so that we're doing this efficiently? And I don't know how to address the fact that a lot of, I mean, as a filmmaker, I absolutely want to work collaboratively, but I don't necessarily find other artists as open to that, because you know what I mean? Because I don't know, with a fear involved, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just like,
I think that when the thing that I always tell my clients is the first thing I want you to do is just keep an eye out for potential fundraisers. You know, I'm not saying they are going to be artists. You know, it might just be the person who writes in the chat, oh, I want to know more about your film. You know, it could be somebody who has nothing to do with filmmaking, could be somebody who has nothing, you know, that's not their life.
right.
But that there is something about the cause of your film that excites them. And I do think that it's a rare person who think, oh, I want to raise money. I think that's a rare person, but I want you to be looking for that person because they are out there, you know? And so, you know, it's something that you can give people to do, that they can be doing something useful and volunteering. And volunteering is just something that apparently more than 50% of the people engage in. And if you have something valuable for them to contribute, then fundraising is a great thing.
Okay.
But I think it's the last thing anybody thinks to ask somebody to do. It's the last thing. Coco, what's your question? Lovely to meet you.
Yes, thank you, and happy to be here. How do you estimate the monies needed, you know, when you're doing that, expand your fundraising capacity, you know, or just in general, like, what is your target? You know, when you're, I know that's very vague, but how do you?
I think it costs about $75,000 to $100,000 to have a full-time experienced fundraiser. I'm not talking about a beginner. I'm talking about a serious experienced fundraiser who really knows what they're doing. I would say $75,000 to $100,000. So if you are a year, you know, so if you are running an organization, so I mentioned that organization before that was at $68,000 after 38 years. You know, and so what they're doing, because they're never focusing on fundraising, is they're never growing and they're never achieving what they need to achieve. I just went back and looked through the chat, and the no, you do not pay fundraisers a success fee or a percentage of what they raise. So that's not the way that fundraising works. You need to hire them as a consultant or as a staff person or whatever that is. And I'm seeing all these messages in the chat that I didn't see because I was focusing on what I was saying. But yes, all these statistics true of documentaries as well. Individual giving is increasing, yes. So the last thing that a fundraiser wants to be asked to do is to work on the amount of money raised. That is completely not fair. You need to pay them just as you would pay anybody else. How do you, yeah, so yeah, I would say $75,000 to $100,000 is what you would pay a full-time fundraiser with a lot of experience. And at the up into about $3 million for an organization with a $3 million a year budget probably one full-time fundraiser is about it. I did work for a small organization that size that I had 2 full-time staff in my department, but that was kind of rare, you know. Naseeb, what's your question?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, when you said hire full-time fundraising, that's for 1 year, for 6 months? How
For a
does that
year,
work?
yeah, 75 to 100,000.
Okay, and if I have a target, if I have, let's say I have a budget for project for $2 million, is he has to get this target in 1 year?
That would really depend on a lot of things, Naseeb. The first thing I do when somebody hires me and my fundraising team, the first thing I do is an assessment to see what is what the organization or the film, you know, what the potential is. So it's very difficult to say, you know, without knowing more information, how you go from 0 to 2 million, right? But I'm working right now with a potential client with those kind of numbers from 0 to 2 million, but I already know who that individual has in their individual network. So they have $2 million in their individual network. So I would, as always, I would focus on a major donor campaign and then, you know, look and see what other things are available, what other ways of fundraising are available to that cause or to that nonprofit or, you know, whatever that is. So I would have to know more details. It's always harder to go from 0 to 2 million than to go from, say, 1 million to 2 million, because you already have some things in place. And what I learned when I was really consulting for nonprofits is that I would go into the nonprofit and I'd always see straight away, oh, they're raising money in 2 ways. You know, what about all the other ways? And so once you, what I would do is I would just start raising money in all the other ways, and all of a sudden the organization would have so much more money, you know. But going from 0 is harder than going from, say, 1 million to 2 million. Although that experience I had last year, we had 1.2 million. I set a goal to raise an extra 400, so to get from 1.2 to 1.6. And instead we raised 2.2. So it went from being a $1.2 million organization to being a $3.4 million organization in 3 months. And it was just because as soon as I saw the organization, I saw it from a different perspective. And then I went and presented that to our funders and they went, oh, we didn't know that's who you were. That's very common.
So basically, you have to know more about the project, how much it's going to be cost, or I have to tell you, hey, this project costs 2 million and I need to get 2 million. How does that work between?
No, I don't mean that. I just mean that it's harder to go from 0 with nothing in place and no history of giving and no nothing to 2 million. But we can speak offline, Naseeb, and you can give me
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah. I'll put my calendar in the chat again. And there is my calendar, so you can set up a time that we can speak, and we can speak about the virtual fundraising team raising money for you, because $2 million is perfect for the team to do. Any other questions? No? Okay, it's kind of getting late over here. We've already lost our, well, no, Jimmy's still here. We lost our person, I think, from the Philippines. Oh no, Athena's still here. Anon was from the Philippines, and Yinka and Jimmy are in England, and it's getting very late. So Oh, and there's Dr. Alberta from Trinidad. Well, that's just around the corner because I'm in Trinidad now. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening to me talk about my favorite subject, which is raising money.
Thank you, Joanne.
Raising money.
Yes.
So
Thank you,
go out.
Joanne.
Now,
you.
now everywhere you look, you're going to be seeing people who you're like, oh, will you come and raise money for me? Will you come and raise money for me? You'll be in the supermarket. You'll be like, oh, will you come and raise? You'll be in Starbucks. You'll be like, hey, will you come and raise money for me?
Can this video be emailed to us?
Yes. I don't know who said that, but yes, we have the recording. So
Awesome.
thank you, everybody, for coming. This is really the first time that I have just taught about fundraising, building a team, not about films. So it's been very new for me. So thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with me losing my PowerPoint.
Technology.
Joanne, it's so great to hear you addressing just this subject, because it just, like, I don't care how many times I hear you talk about this, I always learn like 10 or 15 things that I did not, like, that I wasn't looking at before. Yeah, you know?
Oh, thank you.
And I don't think that that's a negative reflection on myself at all.
No.
So,
not at all. As I said, fundraising is not rocket science, but there is something a little tricky about getting it in. Anthony, are you ready to grow your fundraising team now? You're muted, so I have no idea what you're saying, but you're yes.
Joanne,
Go
I
to
just
Starbucks, recruit people. Monica, yes, go ahead.
yes. I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, my brain is exploding in terms of the possibilities.
I love breaking people's brains. Yes.
I mean, I've already turned my whole program back here into a whole film. I see the whole everything. I mean, like the sitcom, the whole nine. So like I see a whole world that I dreamed about, but I didn't even know was possible, to be quite honest. So making this very much possible. And I see multiple different ways to build ecosystems that could reach further into the community that I serve, as well as the broader community. So I would love to do some of these exchanges. I think they're happening naturally. And I am, you know, just like elated because I feel like I'm gonna be a part of this big thing that's gonna happen. So you made me have that thought.
Well,
so thank you.
From my perspective, though, you know, I always start with, well, well, how much money can we raise? You know, is it $40,000? Is it $100,000? Is it 300? Once we can decide, okay, that's going to be our goal, we're going to go for that, and
Right.
then
Just scale up.
exactly, and then
You know, it's interesting because when I first started my business, and I only had at the time, I had built this big ecosystem in the church world, like marketplace, but then in the beauty industry, I knew was a recession-proof industry. So with the thought process that you have, I started with $11.26 and was able to incrementally build the business in upward, you know, it's a small business, $3 million, but still it takes
that's awesome.
Scalable, you know, pieces to get there. And it's not a, you know, a one way, only way kind of thing. You just got to kind of know the things.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing your wisdom because it gave me insight in some areas that I knew, but didn't believe or believed or just forgot, you know, because you're working with nonprofit organizations. A lot of times I know I had a social enterprise, and then just the mere fact that the reality as to why I wanted that was to balance out the nonprofit for-profit enterprise exchange. And when you said it, I was like, ding dong, you know, that's true. Somebody could be, if they didn't know how to allocate, you know, their budget guidelines across that, they'll look up and think they're somewhere they're not. So it's the same thing as running a business. So which it is a business, but you know, you gave me like the realities of CEO in this, or, you know, the truth of that. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
When I first moved to San Francisco in 2005, it just so happened that the YMCA where I went to work, every 2 years they had a fundraising conference, and people came from all over the country that worked at Wise and raised money, and we had 3 days or something like that of professional development. And I walked into this workshop, and it was the Kresge Foundation. And the Kresge Foundation was saying, we've been building, symphonies, operas, ballets, for a century, and now we've taken 2 years away, and we have reemerged with a completely new way of looking at funding. And all we are now interested in funding is inner city, low income, the poorest places in cities in the US. And so our problem is that we've always been approached by these very blue chip organizations, symphonies. We used to call them the SOBs, symphonies, operas, and ballets. But now that's not who we're looking for. We're looking for places like you. We're looking for the YMCA, So we need you to apply. So I take that information and I go to the YMCA. I got $60,000. Then they asked us to apply for 2 million, and the Y wouldn't, so I left. They refused, so I left. I went to youth radio, got $1 million from Kresge, just from going to that one workshop at our professional development conference. And so every organization that I ever consulted for, I always wanted them to put more money into building their fundraising.
Absolutely.
Same for filmmakers, the same for every nonprofit. You put money into your fundraising, you raise more money. You put more money in your fundraising, you raise more money.
It just makes sense on so many levels. It does. And then to expand it across what you're just saying, I actually witnessed some of what you're talking about through, we're living in Cleveland, Ohio. They created a ecosystem through a Tri-C, which is an inner city 2-year college, and allow for the people to come in who had the grant money as well as paid. And the director in the background, he was from the inner city, and he created this whole beautiful piece where these young people were able to get access to opportunities that they would have never gotten access to, as well as the people who were making the productions had more talent. So you kind of cross it, because people in different cultures will say, well, I don't know anyone in that culture, or you can get into it, you only know a certain level of what the talent may be. And doing some of the work that I want to do from this perspective will help to cross some of those. It's like building up and building down, but you have something in the middle that allows for it to work out, which is the programming. So that's what I see in terms of being able to truly do some great work.
And where you go the programming, I go the money.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Which is, because that's, I use that as the vision that pulls the money in, but you got to have, you got to have kind of both. So when you have a deficit on one side or the other, then you have a limitation of people moving up. And especially just, and I will say this in this space, being an African-American woman and having this conversation in a space where it's normalcy for you. I appreciate it even more because it gives me a opportunity to be at a table possibly that I could create and be a part of in a different way. Because a lot of times things come down through wealth or through media, especially because that's where we market to each other. And in marketing to one another, the symbols, the thoughts, whatever we put out there is what people believe. And so this in and of itself crosses barriers that, are not normally crossed. So I want to say that as well as
I want to take Jimmy's question as well. But one thing I would say also is that the only thing I ever raised money for was excellence. I never knew anybody. I never was connected. I never raised money because, there's this whole thing about it's who you know, and I never knew anyone. I just put forward an excellent program,
Mhm.
gets it funded. That's it.
Yeah, and you get access at levels that, you know what I'm saying? Because I have excellent programming, but without access, there's a different level of resources that you get. So for example, I won't go into detail. I had a program where I created entrepreneurs for individuals that could get into an industry, whether they were within the system or without the system, where I had a gentleman who was next door to me, who had a program who he created, same concept, but it was for people who, he had a French restaurant where he pulled people through their school and they could become French restaurant owners. Wow, it's wonderful. He had dorm rooms for them, all of that. My same concept, but I did it in beauty and barber world. Well, the only difference to me is that African-American men in Cleveland, Ohio are not likely to become French restaurant owners,
Right.
but they are likely to become barbers.
Sure.
They are likely
Yes.
to own barber and
For
beauty shops.
sure.
So I say that to say it's a difference at what table you're sitting at, as to what the resources are, because I was at certain places that he was at places I couldn't go, not because I couldn't, I just didn't know the people. So it just changes the partners. That's all. It just gives you more access. Not that it's bad, wrong, good, different. It's just the reality, because I was knocking on certain foundation doors and he knocked on some that I didn't know existed. You understand what I'm saying? So he was able to survive COVID, and his community helped him to survive COVID, utilizing the same market of people that I was using. The same gentlemen that went to his school were coming to my school, but it was that he was able to fund in a different way, which gave them access to get a job as a waiter, probably at the the local restaurants there in Cleveland, Ohio, because there's not many people that are going to end up actualizing as to own. It'd be too
I just
competitive.
want to, Monica, I just want to check. Jimmy, is your hand raised? Do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do. You're supposed to be asleep by now, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, anyway, I'll go on that, but I just was saying it's a difference in our.
Don't go, Monica. Listen to hear Jimmy's question. It'll be good.
Okay, so
Go
that's
ahead.
that's it. Thank
Jimmy.
you.
I'll be going to sleep soon. No, but greetings from the future. So my question, so again, thank you so much for this time, for this Joanne. It's great to be in this space, and this is something I'm trying to raise money for the program, so we're on it. My question is around the importance, some of the groundwork that would make this more effective, if there is. Like, I have a movie that is a movement, and we are learning. I feel like there's a. I'm not hesitating because I'm not hesitating because I'm doubtful. I'm hesitating because I'm just trying to think through the words here. The film is around story, this, women of color who left the corporate world and how they're rebuilding back their lives. And it's looking like overwhelmingly the people who care the most about this film from a end user standpoint are professional Black women over the age of 35 to 50. And I'm just wondering, in terms of, is there more clarity that would be helpful to have before we start going down a fundraising path, so that it eliminates kind of the dead ends? One of the things I've been finding just from my own conversations that I'm producing is I had a lot of things I was testing, like going to diversity inclusion people, and they really didn't like the film. Going to women's groups, and they were like, we only handle women's issues in a women's group, and this is not a women's issue, because it's like Black women aren't women.
Women?
I don't know what that means. So I feel like I do wonder if there's still a bit more research I need to do to kind of be clear on that. The other piece, this is more of a comment, and these questions are fragmented, and I apologize for them being fragmented, well, kind of, but one of the questions that I was asked early on by you was, what's the plan? What's the plan beyond the film? And that really stumped me for months, to really kind of chew on and think about and wrestle with, and call emergency meeting, crisis meetings, like, what is the plan? And someone said no. Because I began to think, what if I was to raise my own thinking ones, not that you said this, but if I was to raise $1 million, what would I do with it? That was the question I kind of went away with. And and then what someone said, it sounds like she's asking you what your 5-year plan is. And that's another way to think about it. And that was even harder. So I think I'm in a space now where I don't have a program. I listen to Monica, and I think it's great that I feel inspired to hear that she's got a program. But I feel like there's definitely something, the core now for my project is, it is getting, again, I'd love 1 million Black professional women to watch my film, but also now to create, and off the back of that, create half-day, one-day workshops so they can share their stories, so they can be seen, heard, and believed, many for the first time, about the abuse they've had at work.
It's a good idea.
I feel, you know, I feel I'm complete. I really feel if that's all we're doing is helping them, giving them space to tell their story, being able to fund a half-day, full-day virtual workshops to get that out there, that would be where I'd want to go. And a big part of it that I really would want to raise money for is even identifying, because I did not realize in the United States, there are probably thousands of professional groups for Black women. And so even having a team, the fundraise for someone to do the fundraising, and also part of that is to get people to actually begin to catalog and begin to reach out to all those groups. Anyway, there's a question in there somewhere, but that question that I had was like, broke my brain.
I love breaking your brain. In your case, I think that the question, what's the plan, is, for me, all it is, and what do you want to do? That's all. You know, what would be fun for you? And what would be fun for you is showing the film and setting up half and one-day workshops for women to tell their stories so they can be heard. That's it. That's all I care about, is if it's fun for you, there's $1 million right there. If it's not fun for you and you're having to struggle, and it's, you know, you're dealing with these white men running the DEI departments or whoever they are, I don't know, but then it's not fun, right? It's not fun. If it's fun for you, and this is what you were like, this is what would fill me up, that's it. That's all I mean by what is your plan? That's all I mean.
It did take me a while to answer that question, like, what really do I want to do? And it took some wrestling, but thank you for that.
Yeah.
Joy, can I offer something?
Yeah, Naseeb has a question, but go ahead, Monica. And
I was
then
going to offer something to Jimmy. I don't know if this is of any value, just being in certain rooms where having a part of the answer to a heartfelt space, you know, because if you're identifying with your own desire to help a group of people, there's passion involved in that. And so I understand if this is what you're saying, taking somebody on a journey without the conclusion, and that may not be what you're saying, but up underneath that room of them telling their stories, there are, you know, things that, you know, it's a thought, the expanded thought. There are things that can as well be inserted there that would give you a completion without you having to do them, put it like that. You know, to Joanne's point, you know, you can take it here and not feel like you dropped it, or feel like it's not complete. And I don't know if that's your feeling at all. I'm just saying that because I know when building something as big as you're building, there's still more. There's always more to it. So I just throw that out there as an expander, because there's a plug that you can plug into that space that could make it complete for the level. If that's even a thought. I don't even know if you know.
Yeah, is it what you're saying, Monica, is Jimmy doesn't have to do everything. She can do the piece she wants to do. That's what the purpose of having $1 million is, so that you can do the pieces you want to do and have other people do the other pieces maybe that you don't want to do, but maybe you think should be there. I don't know if that's what you think. But I mean, there was a moment, you know, in the Me Too movement where it really was just, I remember going through the process of just sharing my stories and just being like, and just having people say, that sounds terrible. And just being like, oh, you know, thank God I got to say it and somebody heard it. But then maybe, you know.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm happy to kind of listen, but I think for me, one of the things where I think I think there's so many women's whose stories just haven't even been told. And when we have some of these kind of smaller sessions, people are often surprised that senior women are having this issue. Like in 2022, yeah, it's like, what, in London? Like, yeah, in New York, yeah. So even just, I think there's something about us hearing the plurality of how much this is, and going, and part of me really wants to move away from, and now here's what you should do. Because for me, I feel it infantilizes a little bit. And secondly, I think there's so many things we could do. I don't want to say, for some people, you know, they may want to stay and fight with their fight for their rights with their employer. Some may want to try and stay healthy. Some may quiet quit. That may be how they want to do it. Some may decide to get their finances in order. Some may start a business. Some may change jobs. Some may, you know, marry a 25-year-old pool boy and know their life is the best it ever has been. But I still want to have the conversation, because there could be something, maybe a way to end it so it doesn't feel incomplete. But I do like the idea of almost like it's still art as a film. And I want to create the space where people take their own interpretation from the art and continue their own journey. But I'm happy to have a chat about, could there be something there? I know I could talk about this forever, so I'm happy to yield the floor.
I know that you have a second film already, but another simple second film would be Senior Corporate Women, New York. Same film.
Vanishing Women in New York, like Law and Order, dun dun.
New York.
These are their stories, dun dun.
These are their stories. That's awesome. Naseeb, what's your question? This is always the best part for me, because then I'm just relaxed now. I'm not trying to find my PowerPoint. Naseeb.
Okay. Okay. When we say a short film, what is the standard in your state? 45 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes?
No. 5 minutes. 7 minutes.
Short film.
Yes.
That's short film.
Yes, 5 minutes or 7 minutes. Yeah.
And what is the film like? More than 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
A feature film is technically 90 minutes.
90 minutes. Okay, 1 hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. But a short film is, people are always thinking 65 minutes. No.
It could be the film like 30 minutes, 35, 40, or whatever. Could be.
It could, but it starts to get complicated when you have a film that is that long, because there's not many places to show it.
I see. Okay, I see.
Yeah, too long.
Okay.
You know? So, yeah. You know, also, Naseeb, where are you calling in from?
Say again?
Where are you calling in from?
I'm from Philly.
Calcutta?
No, Philly. I live in Philly.
Philly?
Yes.
Philadelphia, okay.
Yes.
But your culture, what is your culture?
Yeah. I'm from Jordan.
Jordan?
Yes. I work like 17 years in this field, the post-production.
Ah.
I did a lot film documentary, series, movies. So right now I help friends in the future news interview on Washington, D.C. But I'm ready to get back to this field.
Great. Well, the thing is that I'm here in Trinidad right now visiting my father. And one of the things that I know is that the attention span in Trinidad is maybe, I don't know, it's maybe 5 or 6 times the length of the attention span in America. So, you know, if I were making something for a Trinidadian audience, it could be longer than if I were making it for an American audience. But for an American audience, the attention span is much shorter than it is here. And I think that that's probably the case for most other cultures in the world other than America. But the American—
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Also, the average length of a film that gets into Sundance, a short film that gets into Sundance, is 7.5 minutes. So that's another good number to go by.
I see. Thanks.
Okay.
And good night.
Good
everybody.
night. All right. We're really going now. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Enjoy Diwali.
Bye,
Everybody.
everyone. Thank you, Joanne. Thank
Bye,
you.
Athena.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Work